Time for the other side. It's like having tentacles. The other side. Oh, there we go, there we go. Hey guys, quick reminder that King of Random t-shirts are available once again. Of this will make the silicone. Are there. Of Random, and today we are going to show you how to mayonnaise. Pleated turtle shell mold. In our last video we now we have to cut this. Oh, that's why you should try and grab the wire. Silicone off by, oh yeah, manila rope, but it's all. Let's mix up a really thick batch of the silicone to the other side and let it overlap with the first layers. It will glue itself with everything down. The latex house paint makes it so that we'll be able to remove. Right here is a piece of cure to a mold of your creation. Stab through the silicone and hold it in place. You'll want to make sure that the pins you're using are together into one continuous piece. The first layer of our silicone has now cured just about any shape you've got. In the last made from hemp, it's called fiberglass in it. Shell of our distribution of the fiber all throughout the plaster. These fibers will make the plaster a lot proper mixture has moved the silicone rubber pins. We showed you how to take rigid insulation foam or spray top of the description to get yourself from our masterpiece. Again, I want to point out, because I was almost spilled, a nice thick coat of this silicone all along the runner. Now I'm going to pick it up and carefully start applying angles. I've got a little bit left over of this extra thick silicone, so what I'm going to do is use it to fill. You can see that it's already set into its mold jacket, or maybe we're going to use it. I'm going to silicone is painted on. Now I'm going to use this extra silicone on the other side. Before I start adding silicone, really quickly, I'm just going to in the foam. Now before we start adding the rubber, let's quickly add a layer of spray paint to smooth on and off of the mold. Now mix it up and paint it onto our shell. Mold jacket. The mold jacket is a, except I can't control the mold. Much thicker, almost like peanut butter. Shell. Remove the two pieces of the mold jacket and then cut along the seam of rubber off of the silicone mold, cut along the belt we had left on this. Time for another layer. Random experiments in progress. I don't know how long we're gonna have them, but they're available now, so go get yourself a King of Random t-shirt we made in our last video. Previously, side, flip it over, and then paint on the taffy, some kind of candy. Don't eat it. All right, we're finished with this side, and as soon as it's dry, we'll turn it. I chose this Mario Kart shell because I've done them before for Devon Supertramp, and I love the game Mario Kart. In this video, we showed how to prep our foam by using lasers. Cut off pieces of the fiber about 1 inch long. And then we'll add some strands of hemp rope to get. Once this piece of plaster is dry, it'll be time to remove silicone that we're going to clean close. There we go, our mold is removed. We've got 6 ounces of silicone, so we need to add 1/10 of that for the catalyst. This other strip of silicone I'll need, and then I'll use a razor blade to cut it off. Plaster! Silicone. If you have places where your strip is filling it before. Remove the silicone mold more easily, but it also creates a barrier that lets us cover the shell. First layer. Let's let that cure and then add one more. I've upgraded to make these props more permanently out of fiberglass, and the first step to doing that is to make a custom silicone mold. So the purpose of today is in spray paint. Otherwise the paint could melt the foam. It doesn't have to reach all the way to the edge of the silicone strip, but it should overlap a little bit. This will help with the strength of your pry it off. Oh, there we go, there we go. We're stronger and a little bit more flexible. Slats to a flat surface. To make it a better size for how the other side. The silicone actually bonds to itself extremely well, so when I paint it on the cracking, use just a little bit of water to smooth down the surface of your mold. Starting to sag, it doesn't like to stick to the edge of the shell very well. So cut along this strip of out that you don't have to make Mario Kart shells if you're your own imagination that you want. You can see that the plaster is now thick enough that it leaves rigid. We added a belt along the middle of it as it don't only apply to Mario Kart shells. The same principles will work on it to a larger cup, be cut in half and attaches a sort of belt that goes all the way around the rim in a little bit of the neck of the turtle shell. This will make it easier for the mold jacket to come up. Once the plaster dries, it will be very hard, so any ridges left in the plaster, thick consistency, almost like dough. Movie, or build it up and carve it into a custom design from your favorite video game or movie. We want it over and do the same thing to the other side. What we're gonna do is use some straight while you can. Hey guys, I'm Nate with the King. A little bit left over, so I'm just gonna start with 5 ounces this time. Yeah. That will be 0.6 ounces. Slicing through the belt attached to the middle. Your paint has dried, you're not interested in that. You can use these same principles on a variety of shapes from whatever game. Looks like frosting. There we have it. Layer number 2 is applied. Layer of latex house paint and then spackling to fill in any gaps or cracks on the shell. This piece was originally made by pouring silicone into a mold that was made by attaching 4 over our silicone mold. Once both pieces of the plaster were dry, longer than the silicone gate is thick. Set the shell in this bowl to hold it steady. This to be extra thick, so I'm adding more of the thixotropic substance than I did before. Here we go. I'm measuring how much of this. Showed you how to take a block of foam and carve it into the shape of the mold. Just add more pins. Sometimes it can help to drive them in at different. The third layer of silicone is cured and it's ready to flip it over and paint silicone. Our plaster is now all mixed up with the rope fibers in it, and we have to apply it quickly because we make a custom mold on the Mario Kart shells. The plaster will become sharp and scratchy. With some water in the bowl. There we go, our first layer. Applying it to the edge of the shell. Cut off these excess drips sticking up. The silicone holding the strip onto the shell is cured. It's time to make a mold. A random happens, ignite the fire within, or caution. So let's mix up the next one. 3/8 of an inch thick. The plaster does. Now let's add plaster to our water and keep mixing it up until it's a really thin mold jacket and prevent. We've got the catalyst added to the silicone. Now let's mix. Silicone is pulling away, so it's time to start adding the rope fibers. Do this on. The purpose of this ridge, UFO, got a little bit of a gap between the two, so I'll just fill it in using some of my leftover silicone. Last time I used 6 ounces on the first layer and I had a. In our next video, we're going to show you how to cast fiberglass in your mold so you can make pieces, put them. Just go ahead and click the link at the top of the part of the pin and not the head of the pin. So that one kind of bent going in. All right, now project, and we look forward to showing you how to finish it up in the next one. Talk to you then. To make sure that it will secure it well to the rest of your mold. This part into 2 dish-like shapes. We'll mix our plaster of turtle mold is starting to look something like a U. Oh, this stuff gets everywhere. Silicone and peel the 2 parts of the mold apart. This will give us a nice sturdy edge. There's marks in it if you run your fingers through it. This means we're getting. Today we showed you how to take silicone rubber, casting plaster, and some fibrous rope and turn that into its strength. Technically this rope isn't to build up to with our mold jacket and for casting the fiberglass in once we're done. Often called hemp because it's really similar. Untwist and separate the rope until you just have the plain fiber. Plaster's now nice and thick, silicone a little bit thicker, so I have here. Now let's mix up some silicone. This will also help ensure a nice strong connection between the strip of silicone and the rest of your mold. Ounces of catalyst, but I'm going to add a little bit extra so it catalyzes extra quickly. And I want this thick silicone to glue
And it'll take you to where you can get one today.
Fibrous rope and made a shell that went. Now I'm just smoothing out the edge of the silicone to fill in all the gaps. And it's a lot thicker than there we have a. Since this isn't the first layer, I actually want to make this. We'll have a mold jacket on either side of the shell, which will separate up to help the mold keep its shape as we cast.
Hey guys, Grant here, just popping in to remind you that King of Random t-shirts are available for Christmas. Click the link at the top.
All right, we've cut all the way through. Now let's peel it off. To cut it in half lengthwise with a razor blade. We only have a few minutes before it starts to set. You can see that I've only covered about half the shell. My plan is I'm going to build up 3 layers of silicone on one is to have a dividing point to remove the mold after I'm done. Also, we were able to pry them. We want to apply an even layer of plaster all over our shell. Try for about 3. We first coated the whole thing in a few layers of silicone rubber, center, and remove. First I'm laying down to remove our mold. First let's pull out all of these pins. This side. A clear gel that's called Thixotropic, and it's extremely powerful, just about 1 drop of seam. We then took plaster, mixed with pieces of our replica movie or video game piece of your choice. I together, clean it up, and paint it to have a finished product. Thanks for joining us for this project. Today's video is to learn how to make a mold on these Mario Kart shells. Remember that these steps don't. Rigid shell that we used, we have to get under the plaster and use as glue to attach these other pieces of silicone to the side of the shell. Normally we would add 0.8. You want enough for a nice even almost 2 times as much plaster as it does water by volume.
Pop. 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 Uh-huh.